going. Blair students, we listen to faculty and fellow students in chapel. We learn about their stories. A little harder to learn about people who work at Blair, but are not here every day full time. And Cornell Thomas, I think, has a great tale about familial challenge, athletic challenge, and overcoming those struggles. It's been a while getting here. We've been talking about this for a long time. It's really a pleasure to have him tonight. And, let's welcome Cornell.
I don't want to embarrass my mom, but Mom, if you could please stand up for 1 second, please. My mom has never seen me speak before, so having her here and speaking at Blair, where I've been for 6 years, is just really special. So, sorry, Mom, she's probably gonna hit me in the face when I finish, but I appreciate it. So, I remember being in Miss Legala's class in the 3rd grade, and I remember Miss Legala because she was my first adult crush. She was like the hottest teacher in the whole entire school. So, whenever she said something, I paid attention. So one day she was talking about, I wasn't really paying attention, she was talking about something. And she said, I want you to do a favor for me. I want you to get out a piece of paper and a pen and write down the answer to this question. So I'm like, all right, beautiful. Like, you know, I'm saying this to myself, I'm not saying it out loud. And I'm like, all right, I can't wait, I'm gonna rock this question. Because I used to have visions of us running away together and living off of Capri Suns and Little Debbie's. So once she said the assignment, I got my piece of paper out, my pen, and she goes, okay, answer this question. What do you want to be when you grow up? And I went to put my piece of pen to the paper, and I just stopped. And back then, I was kind of like a class clown. But I was the class clown. So I started looking around, looking for someone else to laugh, and everybody else was writing in the paper. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, how am I supposed to answer this question? I'm about 10 years old. All I want to do is eat sugar and do cartwheels. And this lady's asking me this adult question. So I sat there for 10 minutes, just looking at a blank piece of paper. And after the time started getting closer to the end, I did what any 3rd grader would do. Cheated. My best friend was this guy by the name of Howard Vaughn, who was also known as my math cheat. And I looked next to him, and he wrote down that he wanted to be a scientist. So I wrote down that I wanted to be a scientist. And me and Howard Vaughn would be the first scientists out of public school #1 in the history of the city of Passaic. And when you're in 3rd grade, if you could write your name down, they give you a sticker and pat you on the head. So I was good to go. The problem is every year, the same question kept getting asked. And as you get older, you have to elaborate on the question. So every year I just picked another occupation. I was going to be a teacher, a unicorn tamer, a lion whisperer. I was just writing all sorts of crazy stuff. Because when I was 4.5 years old, my father, Bobby Thomas, passed away from cancer. He was a police officer in the city of Passaic. He did some amazing things in the city of Passaic, but I didn't really know my father. All I knew were stories about my father. So I didn't want to be a police officer. My mom worked a lot of jobs, but her main profession was being a nurse. And she'd come home and tell us how many people died. So I didn't want to get into medicine. So all through my high school, my childhood career, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I was never passionate about anything. I just loved being a kid. Until the summer of my sophomore year. My mom is a country girl. She's from a town called Bird's Nest, Virginia. I cannot make this up. It's called Bird's Nest, Virginia. And Bird's Nest, Virginia, to me as a 16-year-old, was like the size of this room. And in Bird's Nest, Virginia, we had a TV with, I think, 2.5 channels. There was a pool table across the street that the old guys used to play pool on. I think there was a soda machine and 1 or 2 traffic lights. So me and my brothers and sisters used to sit there and just kind of stare at each other for a week and then go home. So on one of these fun-filled days of just staring at my brothers, I was sitting on my cousin's bed. And for whatever reason, I looked under his bed. And there was a stack of newspapers. And I picked up one of the newspapers, and I opened it, and there's a picture of my cousin Carlos with a basketball, dunking a basketball. And it said, Carlos Taylor scores 27 points and win. And I'm like, my cousin's famous. I couldn't believe it. And then I looked on his wall, and he had all these senior pictures of the hottest girls I've ever seen in my life. started doing the math. I said, if I play basketball, I'll be famous and I'll get a date. And back then, I had like the box you guys are trying to bring back, but my brother used to cut it. It was way better than mine. Mine was lopsided. So I was in a lot of friend zones. I wasn't getting a lot of dates. So I read through every single article that week, every single paper, until I memorized his teammates, how many points he scored, who he played against, and I just became obsessed. And so when we got back home, I found this like little Pizza Hut rubber ball. I walked 2.5 miles to the nearest court. I yelled out the equivalent of what you guys would say YOLO is, and I decided to take my first shot. I threw the ball up, the ball went over the basket and rolled down the hill. So I said, okay, well maybe you got slipped. Got the ball back, threw the ball up, it went over the basket and rolled down the hill. So I realized something. That day, I sucked. Like, really bad. And for the next 2 hours, I was just throwing the basketball at the basket. The ball sometimes hit me in the face, hit my foot, roll back down the hill. And out of the woods, I can't make this up, this little Korean guy came out the woods, and he said, hey, do you want me to show you how to shoot a basketball? And let me just make something clear. His house was by the woods, not like he was creepily came out the woods and was like, looking at me. That's not it. He came out, his house was there, and he came out the woods and asked me. I just want to make that clarification. So he said, my name is Ray. I can show you how to shoot. And I said, yeah, sure, show me. So for the next 3 hours, Ray sacrificed his time and showed me how to shoot a basketball. And when Ray was done, I was still terrible. But he planted a seed in my head that I can get better. Because I wasn't as bad as I was 3 hours ago. And every single day, I started working on my game and started working on the game of basketball. I had a goal. I'm going to play in the NBA. I had no idea what that meant. I just thought it sounded good. I'm going to play in the NBA. And so that summer, 6 hours a day, I trained. My mom somehow got us a basket that was about 9 feet. We had a gravel driveway. I kind of propped it up, and I shot on that thing until I couldn't feel my hands and my arms. And my mom was the only person I shared my dream with, because I was too embarrassed to share it with anybody else. So junior year comes around. Day after Thanksgiving, we have tryouts. I got my new sneakers. I go out there for tryouts. It's about 2 hours long. I'm running this way, everybody else is running that way. They had a list on the wall of the varsity team. So I run up to the wall, and I'm looking at the list. And then I scratch my eyes, and I start looking at the list. Then I turn back, and I turn again, and I start looking at the list. And my name's not there. But there's another list in another wall, and it says junior varsity. And there I was. I made the junior varsity team. And I never played basketball before, so for me, I'm a junior, JV, that makes sense, let's go. I had no idea that at my public school, which wasn't very good, if you're a junior and you're playing junior varsity, you're probably not that good. But I found that out the first practice, because the other two juniors was Joe Bader, who was this big and in the marching band, and Brian Height, who was this big and in the marching band. Nothing against the marching band. I'm not saying you play a saxophone, you can't play basketball, but these cats could not play basketball. And it was me. So junior year went by, and I got really good at handing out water. Like I can hand it behind my back, through my legs. I mean, I was great. I never played. But I never stopped working, and that was the difference. I doubted myself tons. Every single day, I doubted myself. I doubted I could get to the NBA. But I never let that doubt stop my do. I really want you guys to focus on that. My doubt didn't stop my do. I kept working. I never stopped working. My junior year, we had prom. I watched the limousines drive past the court as I was working out. I didn't go to prom. My senior year, I didn't go to prom. I trained, and I got better. And we didn't have all these skills trainers and these YouTube videos and all this other stuff. I just got a basketball and got to work. Period. So my senior year came, and I made varsity, because all seniors make varsity. The first game, I think I played 3 minutes. The second game, I think I played 30 seconds. The third game, I didn't play. Fourth game, I didn't play, and then it just the pattern. Minute, no minutes, minute, no minute. So the whole season, I probably played about 45 minutes. My goal was to play in the NBA. I'm not playing on a 4-18 team. All my friends are picking colleges to go to. Obviously, no colleges are recruiting me. So I found out about this tryout at Centenary College right here in Hackettstown. And my mom took me to it. So I go to the tryout. It's about 2 hours long. I stake it up. I mean, I'm horrible. Horrible. Just thinking about it gives me chills. And the coach, a man by the name of Coach Gemma, rest in peace, was just a very nice guy. He said, Cornell, I want to meet with you in my office after the trial. So me and my mom met with Coach Gemma. Coach Gemma said, okay, here's the thing. You can be on the team. Okay, let me hold on. Like, you can be on the team, Cornell, but how can I put this? You'll never play. Like, hold on. I don't know if you understand. Like, if everybody gets a ball, right, and dies, you might play a little bit. Maybe. And I was like, college uniform, let's go. But Tina Thomas had other plans. And she raised her hand. And there was only 3 of us. I looked at my mom like, why is she raising her hand? My mom knew my dream. So my mom says, Coach Gemma, yes, Miss Thomas, I think you were surprised too, you raised your hand. How many players from Centenary College have gone to the NBA? Coach Gemma, like, looked at me, and then looked at my mom. And my mom's sitting there looking at me like she has LeBron James next to her. And he goes, well, Miss Thomas, none. And she goes, oh. And I'm just sinking in my chair like this. Oh my God, I can't believe she just asked that. So we're driving home, and the whole entire time the car's quiet. My mom didn't say anything. But something hit me. My mom believed in my dream more than I did. And I'm telling you right now, as I stand here before you, if anybody believes in your dream more than you, that dream most likely will not happen. So I had to change my mindset. I said, from this day forth, no one will believe in me more than me. Not even my mom, who believes in me more than anybody else. And then I said another thing. My why was wrong. Why I wanted to play professional basketball was all messed up. I wanted to play to get girls and be famous. Instead, I said, I'm going to play professional basketball so the woman I love so much never has to work another day in her life again. And when that happened, everything changed. I didn't care if I was sick. I didn't care if I was tired. I just continued to work. I didn't care what my brother's friends said about my game. No one's words stopped my actions. And when I tell you there was a ton of words, there were a lot of words. There were a lot of people throwing statistics at me, saying, oh, you know, only 1 out of so-and-so make this, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to tell you something about statistics and numbers. If someone says 1 in a million, average people will focus on the million that don't make it. Great people will focus on the one that did. If there's no one that made it, I said, well, I'll be the first. So I started working. And I got to work, and I just started training. I went to a place called Sussex County College. In my freshman year, I got my picture in the paper. First time ever. I was in the background. My teammate was in the paper. But I was still in the paper. I averaged 7 points a game, had a little write-up, and there's a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers, and he talks about your 10,000 hours. And he says to be proficient in anything, you have to put at least 10,000 hours in. At that point in time, I was around the 11,000 hour mark. In my sophomore year, it finally happened. Now imagine being bad at something for 5 years. Most people quit, right? I kept going. And then my sophomore year, I averaged 20 points a game. I was first in Moore Region, first in Moore County, top 5 in the state in scoring, blah, 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 blah. I was able to get a full scholarship. When I told my mom I got a full scholarship, she was like, okay, baby, that's great. And gave me a hug. Because she knew what was going to happen. I go to North Dakota. I meet my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. Have a pretty good career. Go through some adversity. Come back home, training with NBA guys, training with overseas guys. My game's getting better. And then I get this email from my agent, and he goes, Cornell, this team in Portugal has decided to pick you up. It's the top division. Will you go? And I said, of course I'll go. He goes, you have to leave in 2 weeks. I said, I'm ready. So a week goes by, and I'm training, and I'll never forget the feeling that I had when I read that email. Because I feel it now as I say it to you. I just had chills down my body. Because for the last 8 years or so, this is the only thing that I wanted out of life. And I finally, I'm going to accomplish my dream. So I picked up my cousin, brought him back home, told him he's excited. That day we had a huge party. There was like 5 people, Mom, right? Like 5 people. Huge. Little cake. Said congratulations, but it said congrats because we couldn't fit all 11 of them. My girlfriend flew down, and I was on my mind. So, week before I was supposed to leave, I was outside playing with a couple of friends. We were playing 3-on-3, just nondescript game, meaningless game. Went to go to the basket, felt a pop. Fell on the ground. I looked around and said, who stepped on my heel? None of my guys were around me. They came and picked me up, put weight back on my right foot, and fell again. So I said, okay, this might be a little serious, and I fall. So a guy helped me to the car. I drove by automatic transmission with 2 feet to Newton Memorial Hospital. I dragged my foot up to the emergency room. And you guys are from New Jersey, unless your head's off, you're going to be in the emergency room for at least 7 hours. And I sat there with my foot dangled, and I called my mom and I said, Mom, I think I really messed up my ankle. Could you come down here? So my mom was down there. She's about 40 minutes away. She got there in about 3 minutes. Broke every traffic law possible. And this man by the name of Dr. Bradner said, Cornell, I'm going to grab your calf, and if you feel excruciating pain, we have to do surgery on Thursday, which is 3 days away. And none of this was like hitting me yet. You know, none of the contract, none of this was hitting me. So he grabbed my calf, and I almost yelled, and he goes, we have to do surgery. Put me in a soft boot. The next 2 days were just a blur. And on Thursday, I had a hard cast. That Friday, my mom had to go to work, and she left me home by myself, and I just cried. For hours, I just cried. I didn't want to cry for my mom, so I didn't want her to feel bad, but I just let it all out. And I just sat there feeling sorry for myself. And I was in full-blown, why me mood. Why did this happen to me? I do everything right. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I work really hard, I'm respectful, blah, blah. Why me, why me, why me? And the next motion that happened was anger. Anger, because I started thinking about my mom. And I said, she raised 5 kids since I was 4.5 years old, by herself, with no money. And she never said, why me? What she would say is, what now? And she moved us out the city, into a suburb for us to get a better education. I used to come home sometimes, and all the lights would be off, because we couldn't pay the bill. My mom would walk in, not miss a beat, just start handing out flashlights and start lighting candles. When our hot water got shut off, she'd boil cold water, put it in the bathtub, mix it, and we'd take baths. But I never saw her sit there and feel sorry for our situation or sorry for herself. And I'm her son, and here I am, spending the whole entire day worrying about the problem instead of trying to figure out the solution. So that night, I called my buddy Kevin up, who was my workout partner. I said, Kev, pick me up. On Monday, we're going to the gym. And Kevin, his voice was shaky, because I knew he was crying, because he was my best friend. And he goes, Cornell, why do you want me to pick you up, man? You can't do anything. I said, pick me up. So that Monday morning, he came to my house, picked me up. We got to the gym at 8 a.m. And for the next 6 months, I shot from a chair. And the 3 months after that, I shot with a crutch, just like this, one hand. I tried to rebound for him, and I just worked out. And it took my mind away from me feeling sorry for myself. So in life, guys, what you're going to see is sometimes you start seeing signs. And if your mind's open to it, you'll heed the signs. Something was telling me that basketball wasn't my true purpose. Something was telling me that basketball wasn't the reason why I was created. I went to a pro camp after I got better in Alabama. Camp ran terribly. There's these two guys that were complaining at the beginning of camp. I used my last $200, I borrowed $100 from a friend to get to this camp. I worked out, I felt pretty good. Me and my friend from LA came down. So these two guys got kicked out of camp. The last day they came back with guns. And so me and my buddy were gone, and we were on the shuttle bus and into the hotel. And as we were going out to the shuttle bus, these two guys came in. They started shooting up the gym. And someone lost their life. When I went to the hotel room, there's a red flash on my phone saying that someone died. And I was 5 minutes away. So this coaching opportunity comes up at Sussex County College. The coach left, and my AD, my old coach is the AD now, calls me and says, Cornell, we have a coaching position, the guy just left, will you take it? I said, no. So I'm a player. I'm 26 years old. I'm still working out, I'm still training, blah, 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 blah. And my wife, who was my girlfriend, said, you should be a coach. You'd be a great coach. And I got mad at her, because I had this big chip on my shoulder. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And finally I said, okay, you know what I'll do. And then I started realizing what my true purpose in life was. It's helping others. It's serving other people. I started coaching these kids from any city you can think of. I had kids from Baltimore, Maryland, DC, Newark, Patterson, wherever. And the parents would just drop them off to me and say, make them into a man and leave. And I'm 26. Some of the kids I'm coaching are 25. And I got to make this 25-year-old into a man. And 2 years after I started coaching, I opened up Crossroads Basketball and started training kids. And I started seeing these kids that I was training live my dream that I had when I was 16. Started playing professionally overseas. And this one time, there's this boy named Matt, and he was in 8th grade. And all he wanted to do was make his 8th grade team. He was, the first time he came to work out was he did one half warm-up lap and threw up his breakfast. The second time he came with us, he did a whole warm-up lap and threw up his breakfast. It got to the point where I was going to tie a garbage bag around his face and let him run around the gym. But he stayed with it. 6 months later, they had tryouts. And me and Melissa, my wife, we got home, and I checked my answering machine, and he was crying on the phone. And he was crying tears of joy, and he was happy. He goes, Coach, I made it, I made it, I made it, I made it, I made the team. Thank you so much. And I was like, wonderful. I said, okay, this is why I'm here. This is what I was meant to do. So people ask me all the time now, well, how'd you get into speaking? How'd you get into writing books? And it's Facebook. I got into doing what I'm doing right now because of Facebook. Because one day I was on my timeline, and I never read it, but for whatever reason this day I started reading it. It was just the most negative, depressing stuff that I've ever seen in my life. I hate my boyfriend, I hate my girlfriend, my cat is so lame. The cops are the cat lame. What's wrong with your life? So I said, you know what, I'm going to start a new movement. I'm going to post a positive quote every single day. And a good friend of mine gave me a quote book. So I'll take quotes out of the book and post it. And the craziest thing happened. People started to like it. And even the most negative, drama bomb people started to like it. I said, okay, I'm on something. And one day I went to post a quote, and I didn't have the book. And I was freaking out. So I post them every morning. So I wrote my own quote. People still like it. So I said, well, screw the book. I just started writing my own quote every single day. And one day a buddy of mine said, Cornell, he goes, I love your quotes, where do you get them from? So I just wake up, and I just put a quote down, and hopefully it's impactful and helps someone, and that's it. He goes, dude, you should write a blog. So that's a great idea. What's a blog? He said, well, you open up this website and blah, 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 blah. And it's okay. So we're sitting in Panera Bread in Rockaway. I wrote my first blog. It was called Risk, about taking chances. And then he was like, yo, you should write a book. I said, okay, how do you write a book? He goes, go to this website, you can self-publish. I said, okay. So I wrote The Power of Positivity, Controlling Where the Ball Bounces. And I had people from as far as Vietnam say, this book helped change my life. But there's a problem, because the title said positivity. If you look at TV for more than 10 minutes, you know that's not what really sells. People have a problem with the concept of positivity because they look at positivity wrong. Positivity doesn't mean life isn't going to happen. I'm telling you right now, as you sit here in this room, life is going to happen to all of us. We lose loved ones. We get laid off. We get broken up with. We fail tests. It happens. Being positive isn't being fake and skipping through that and not showing human emotion. Being positive isn't the absence of human emotion. It's not living in that negative emotion. It's not being angry every single day. It's not letting a bad thought become a bad day, which becomes a bad week, and then a bad month, and next thing you know, you have the worst year of your life. That's what being positive is. And that's what I talk about. Being positive is looking at the solution and not the problem. And that's my message. I want to share a story with you guys about opportunity. When I started writing my book, I put on Twitter that I was a speaker before I spoke anywhere. I put speaker, because I'm going to go speak. Right? So these guys contact me and they go, hey, I see that you're a speaker. Could you write a guest blog? Sure, wrote a guest blog. Could you come out to Vegas and speak? Sure, I'll go out to Vegas and speak. Great. So I go to the Palms, and I'm standing there. I'm sitting in front of 200 doctors, and I do my speech. And afterwards, they're cheering and going crazy, and the guy comes up to me and goes, oh my God, how long have you been speaking for? I said, 45 minutes. And he goes, what? I go, yeah, 45 minutes is my first speech. He goes, but you sounded so confident. I said, because this is my purpose. And the one funny thing about opportunity, guys, is people think opportunity comes in your house, sits on your couch, eats some chicken, and waits for you to get ready. No, opportunity knocks. And while it's knocking, it's already going to the next person. You're not the only one with your dream. People don't get that. So after I wrote the positivity book, I wrote another book called The Power of Me, Army of One. And it's about being great. That's another concept people have a problem with because there's so many average people on our planet. There's so many people that are content with being like everybody else. They conform. So, when I go out and speak, I tell people crazy things like, you can be anything you want to be. What? You're not telling me to be realistic? You're not telling me I have to be a doctor because my dad's a doctor? No. I'm telling you, anything you put your mind, your heart, your soul to, you can be. Thank God the Wright brothers wanted to be great. Because I have to go to LA next month, and I'd be on a horse and buggy. It took me 9 months to get there. The problem is that people don't believe. People don't take that first step. Dr. Wayne Dyer said this quote that I love. He goes, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. And think about that. You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. There are trillions of dreams in cemeteries all over this planet that belong to people that never got started. They belong to people that were too scared to take that first step. I'm not going to allow that to happen to me. I'm not going to allow that to happen to my son or my daughter. If you want to be great, every day you have to go after your greatness. I give myself 2 options every day. Be great or be great. That's it. Now that doesn't mean there will be some not so great things that happen in the course of my day, but it's not going to stop my path. Ever. One thing that I would love to leave with you guys, and hopefully out of everything that I'm saying, this sticks with you, is a quote by Martin Luther King. He said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. Whatever you do, keep moving forward. You're going to have obstacles in your life. You're going to have people that are going to try to hold you back. Even if you're not taking giant, huge steps forward, I don't want you to stop taking those little baby steps. Because when you train your mind that nothing is going to stop you, nothing, no matter what it is, when that happens, you happen. Thank you so much, guys. any question you want. My mom's in the audience, so just make a note of that. Anybody have any questions? Are you guys seriously that scared? Jenny Mae.
How did you connect with Blair?
How did I connect with Blair? Very funny story. So, Coach Montagna, I don't know if you guys know him or not, he had a clinic that he was running, a basketball clinic, and he couldn't use his players for whatever rule. So he asked me if he could use my guys, and I said yes. And then after that, he said, can you guys come down to the scrimmage? I said, sure. And there was almost about 50 fist fights. So me and Coach got along right away. And then he said, what do you want to do after junior college? And I said, at that time I wanted to coach Division I basketball, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, we should meet. And so I think he had a doctor's appointment he had to go to. And we ended up talking for like an hour and a half. And then I ended up with Blair. So, Coach is a psycho like myself, so we get along right away. I mean that in a good way, like a good psycho, not like a crazy person. Next question. You students understand something. I don't have any regrets in life. One thing I would say to myself, back when I was in high school, is when people come to talk to you, and you guys are all listening, which is amazing, but ask questions, because I don't know when I'll be in front of you again. Right? Life is about moments. You might not ever have this moment again. You might not ever have me in front of you again. So don't be afraid of it. No question's a stupid question. Proceed. Yes?
Did people ever make fun of you for being so positive all the time?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Someone wrote something, I wrote something on Facebook, I wrote a quote, and someone messaged me and goes, why are you so positive? And I took 5 minutes because I wanted to make sure it was real life. And I said, why wouldn't I be? And then the person went on about like all the negative things that are going on in their life. So really what they were doing was just kind of reaching out. Like they needed help with something. And that's the way to kind of get my attention, which they definitely got my attention. I thought it was the craziest thing that someone's ever asked me. So I hear that from time to time, but it's usually someone saying, hey, can you talk to me about whatever situation? So good question. Thank you for being brave. Next. White.
Alright, so you say speaking is like what you're meant to do?
Yeah.
What advice would you give for like finding what you're meant to do?
Okay. So this is an unbelievable question. I thought that I was meant to play basketball first, right? But when the signs started coming, I was aware of it and I started listening. There's this instinct that we all have in our gut where you just feel when something is right, right? And understand, sometimes you might be going down this path, but that path isn't for you. You're designed to do something completely different. Everybody's afraid to change. If I was afraid to change, I'd still be chasing some crazy basketball dream instead of doing what I'm doing right now. So you have to be able to adjust. Bruce Lee has a great quote where he says, like, just be like water. You know, water comes into a cup, it becomes a cup, it comes to a bottle, it becomes a bottle. Right? You have to be able to adapt and adjust to your situation. It's fine. Like a lot of you guys are 16, 17 years old. You guys might be saying to yourself right now, well, I'm a student. How can I be great? There's people in this audience that are 45, 50, maybe even older saying, well, I've lived most of my life. How am I going to be great? And I'll tell you 100%, there's 3 things that you have to do. 3 things. The first thing you have to do is see it. First thing, you have to visualize where you want to be, what you want to do. It's like taking a map. And I want to say, hey, I want to get right here. I might not know how I'm going to get there, but I have to see it first. The second thing you have to do, in your heart of hearts, you have to believe it. It's easy to say, oh, I want to do this. It's one thing to actually believe it. And belief comes when you're going through the worst storm in your life. I can believe in anything when it's sunny. How about when the storm's here? Do I still believe that I can be this? Do I still believe I can do that? And the third thing you have to do, you got to work your butt off to make it happen. There are 2 roads that you guys all know of. One is the easy road. It's nice and smooth and paved, and every 5 miles they give you lollipops. And then there's that really windy, dark, crazy road with bumps and obstacles where you have no idea where it might lead. That's the scary road. The reason we have so many average people is because they love coasting on that road. It takes you right to your comfort zone, which takes you nowhere. This road takes you to your greatness, but it's too scary for most, right? So if you set in your mind, like, I'm going to do this way, I'm not going to go this way, I'm going to go this way, I'm going to see what happens, you're going to find your purpose, you're going to find out what you're meant to do. I found my purpose, right, when I was 35 years old. There's some people that go their whole entire lives and have no idea what their purpose is. And if you don't think that you're here for a reason, if you don't think that you were designed for greatness, let's think about something. I don't want to get too explicit or graphic. Think about this analogy. You go for a job interview, right? Got your shirt, your tie, your dress, whatever. You meet with the person, and they go, oh, just so you know, before we do this interview, there's 450 million other applicants. Best of luck. You're going to be sitting there like, okay, well, I'm probably not going to get the job. And on your way out, before you even get out the parking lot, you get a phone call. You say, Michael Whiteman, you got the job. How would you feel? Right? Your head would be this big. Your swagger level would be on 6,000. You walk with a limp. You're 1 out of 450 million. For you to get to this earth, that's the same job interview you have to take place. Right? There's a lot of little swimmers that were fighting to get you here. You made it. Right? You were the one that made it. So you can't sit here and tell me that you were meant to be here. If you look at it like that, you can understand there's a reason for you. Right? And that's the first part. You Michael Phelps to everybody in God. Next question. It's a great question.
Any thoughts about the state of big-time schoolboy basketball?
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. And the reason that big-time basketball is terrible is because the one thing I love about our program, and I'm a little biased, is that what we demand isn't demanded in most places. So they don't demand you to be a great teammate a lot of places. They don't demand you to have rigorous academics. They don't demand you to be respectful. We demand that. There's no culture in a lot of these big programs. You go there and you do whatever you want. Kids transfer out, kids transfer in. It's like the Wild Wild West. Here, we want to make great people and great players in that order. Not great players and okay people. If you're an okay person, when you leave our program, you fail. And we fail. So that's the problem with big-time basketball. And that's why when I see other programs that we play against, these basketball factories, it makes my stomach turn. When we lose to them, it makes me very, very livid. I'm in a bad state. Thank God I have kids to make me feel better. Next question. See so many people that I know here, because they seven of them.
First, I'd like to thank you, but thank your mother more, because that's amazing. But who's your favorite author?
My favorite author? Man, that's a great question. I would probably say Malcolm Gladwell, and the reason I'd say Malcolm Gladwell is because this man has a way of making how many bottles of ketchup to mustard interesting. Like, why you choose the spaghetti sauce you choose. And that is the most boring subject in the world, and somehow he frames it where it's genius. And I'm like, why are there so many mustards? You know, so like, he makes me think, and he's so outside the box, where he just makes me think differently. So I love Malcolm Gladwell. I just want to piggyback on the speaker. My favorite speaker, one of my favorite speakers is Les Brown and Tony Robbins. And just a funny story about Les Brown is I was on a radio show in Harlem, and the guy asked me, who's your favorite speaker? I said, you know, Les Brown's really good. And the next radio show, he got Les Brown on the radio with me. And I wrote down in my to-do list in my MacBook, about 160 things, I wrote down meet Les Brown. And then next week we're on the same radio show. That's another thing for you guys, just to go somewhere else. If you guys want to accomplish anything in life, you have to make it tangible. Write it down, and then put it somewhere where you can see it. And then ask yourself every day, am I working towards this goal? That is powerful stuff. I do it every single day after my list. Every single day. Okay, when I talk about visualization, I've done this speech 150,000 times in my shower, in the car, or wherever. right? Like I've done this speech already, right? I've written down speak at Skeptics. I'm speaking at Skeptics. I wrote down speak in England, spoke in England. You gotta write it down. You guys go back to your dorms, write down what you want, and then work together. Next question, very good. Please.
Have you always been like confident like before even like love basketball or basketball?
Good question. Have I always been confident? I've been pretty confident. I think the reason I've been pretty confident is I'm the youngest boy. And my brothers think they're better fighters than I was. So I had to make myself up to like, okay, puff my chest out before I got beat up. So I've always been pretty confident. And I think that's just the direct result of how I was raised. My mom taught us that no one's above you and no one's below you. And the same thing for us. Like, we're not above anybody, we're not below anybody. So when I meet people, even when I meet people now that are kind of like, you know, famous or whatever, it's just like, whatever. It's just like meeting someone from the first time. Right? That's just a great way to live. No one's here, everybody's here. Right? But I've always been pretty confident. When I played basketball, I was not that confident because I was terrible. So my brother's friends used to come over just to beat me in basketball. And one thing I'll tell you guys just really quick is when you stop trying to prove people right, prove people wrong, and you start trying to prove yourself right, what you're doing becomes a lot more powerful. I had such a big chip on my shoulder trying to prove people wrong. The moment I switched it and started trying to prove myself right, that I could accomplish what I want to accomplish, that's when I started kicking off a little bit. But yeah, I'm a pretty confident kid except for basketball. I was really bad. Now, I wasn't confident in my hammer pants. I used to have MC hammer pants. You guys don't remember that. So that was a bad time in my life. That's another question. My man.
When you were done accomplishing your dream, what was next?
What was next? You hear the saying, you know, I've arrived. I never arrived. I never arrived. I'm very grateful. I'm very blessed to be where I'm at right now, but I haven't arrived. My goal is to change the planet for the better. I haven't done that yet, because I can turn on the news for 10 minutes and see that that hasn't really happened. So this September, I'm running my first positivity summit in New Jersey. The next one's in LA, and then Toronto. Then we're going to go to San Francisco. Then we're going to go to England. Then we're going to go to Japan. Then we're going to go to all these different places. And I'm going to share this message. And we're going to change the world with that. So the moment you think that you've arrived, that's when you start going back the other way. Right? So I've never arrived. I love what I've accomplished so far. Beautiful family, blah, blah, blah. I'm not even close to done. You'll see. I'm not even close. This is nothing. Give me another couple months. My man.
Yeah, isn't it possible to make your dream your purpose if you work hard enough?
Yeah, for sure. Is it possible to make your dream your purpose if you work hard enough? Yes, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Guys, the blueprint to anything you want out of life is being done right now. What do you want to be? Famous basketball player, actor, lawyer, teacher, whatever. Someone's doing it. Someone's doing it right now. I learned from everybody. I don't want to be anybody. Someone asked me the other day, like, you want to be the next Tony Robbins? I was like, heck no, I don't want to be him. See how big his head is? I want to be the first Cornell Thomas. Period. Period. I want to leave my own footprints. My dream is my purpose. Changing people's lives for the better is what I was put on here to do. And that's what I work towards every single day. That's a great question. Any others? Now we're opening up. You guys aren't scared anymore? Oh, Matt.
You mentioned before that some of your friends didn't believe in your dream.
Yeah.
Did you just choose to ignore them, or did you distance yourself from them? Like, what would you say the best answer to that is? Because like, some people say don't listen to your friends.
Yeah.
But like, some people give advice just to distance yourself from people who don't believe in you.
Yeah.
What would you say the best thing to do, and what did you do?
Yeah, well, first I'll put friends in quotes. Right? Because any friend that tells you that you can't accomplish something, it's a friend. It's not a true friend. And those guys were all, I found out they weren't really friends, they were associates. There's a difference between friends and associates. And when people tell you that you can't do something, and the older people in this room understand, like back in the days we had this TV that had like 6 channels. like an antenna on top of it. And when you go to a channel that doesn't work, you hear shh, there'll be all this white fuzz. That's what I hear when people tell me I can't do something. I swear to you, it's white noise. I don't even hear the words. Your mind is your most powerful weapon. Okay? It's your strongest muscle. So just like you go to the weight room and work out, it's the same thing with your mind. When people say stuff to me that I can't do, okay, it's white noise. I don't pay attention. And then when I do it, I don't run back and say, see, I did it. Because it's amazing how many people believe in you once you start accomplishing your dreams. It's amazing. Some people say you can't, oh, I knew he could do it. I knew he could do it. Matt, can I get free tickets? That's what you hear. Don't make your associates into friends. And don't think that your friends are actually your associates. You only have your circle is very important. If you're around some do-nothing people, you're going to be a do-nothing person. My mom used to say, bad association spoils useful habits. Right, Mom? Like every single day she used to say that. Right? If people see a group of you guys together doing nothing, they're going to say, oh, well, you're probably just like everybody else. So you just do your thing. And eventually, they'll just fall off on their own. Good question. Very surprising.
What is one piece of advice that you have for someone that's struggling with doubting themselves?
One piece of advice I have for someone that's struggling or doubting themselves. It's a great question, and it's something that I deal with probably on a day-to-day basis. I would say if you're doubting yourself, right, ask yourself, why? What do I doubt? What do I not like about myself? Another thing I'd say is it that serious? Most people that doubt, like the things that they hate about themselves, I'm like, but you got your limbs, but you're breathing, but you have a roof over your head, but you have food in your stomach. Why wouldn't you be grateful? Right? There are people that come back from war, no arms, no legs, no money, and they're the happiest people in the world because they're still breathing. If I'm still breathing, I have a chance to make my situation better. Period. But it's hard to think that way when you're in the middle of a storm. The worst storms in the history of our world. Freaking Noah's Ark eventually stopped. Right? Storms eventually ceased. But you can't let a bad storm make you think the sun's never going to come out again. Because when that happens, every single day you're going to be living through that same storm. Great question.
I think we're going to stop there, and we're going to thank Cornell Thomas, but I want you to think about this. About 100 of us are going to have an easier time saying hello and talking with Cornell. Someone we didn't know, most of us didn't know. I certainly didn't, and it's nice to get to know him. And come up and you can talk to him a little more after this, but let's thank him.